that you're curious about or that you know is going to tell the narrative of someone's story, and you use that as a guide. But when you're sitting in conversation, if you're really attuned to the person that you're speaking with, something else may come up that then leads you, down a whole other path. And so, hey, let's go there. As long as you, the person I'm
Mhm.
interviewing, is comfortable with this follow-up question or revealing this. Are you okay with this being, in the post part of the story, in the final cut, if I keep it there? So I think that's where I establish trust is just in the line of questioning and how they respond, with that. Because sometimes they forget the camera's there, or they're, oh wow, I'm getting really comfortable in this
Exactly.
interview, so much so that I'm telling you a little bit more than I want to be telling you.
And you answered it. That was it
Yeah, okay,
right
good.
there. That
That was
was
it. Okay.
that
But
was you
we'll just cut
answered
that
it
other part out.
before, but you marinated it. You rolled it in perfectly into
And
a
and
nice
that's the other
answer.
thing you asked about technical. So because I've been shooting and producing for so long,
Mhm.
it's kind of like this, right? I mean, you have to be very attuned to, okay, I'm composing a beautiful shot. I'm moving with the subject, but you also have to be listening for the story through the audio. Oh wait, there's a not, there's in the audio. So then you have to address that. Like you wear multiple hats, when you're producing and shooting. And I think that I've done it for so long that it becomes instinctual. But what's funny is my husband would say, "You're not a very good multitasker. Like you have to be
Really?
tuned." I know, isn't that odd? Like if I'm doing something else and yet he asks me a question, maybe it's selective. Maybe it's selective
It
listening.
could be.
Shh.
The
Oh,
film proves him wrong.
yeah, right.
The film proves
Exactly.
him wrong.
Exactly.
The camera does not lie.
Right, right. And,
And
and,
what
and that was tough too. I mean, being, out there on a mesa with no crew, I'd wear everything on my back. I mean, there were times where I had a still camera and my video camera and a tripod, and my headset, and the mics are having interference, and so you just kind of have to stay calm in the storm and carry on. And yeah. Mm.
yeah, he didn't his response, John's response was he didn't pay attention. I truly felt as though
Mm.
he knew how to just block everything else out and just stay in his own world. I
Yeah.
felt that that's what I seen. Like
Yeah.
he moved through Wild Horses at the Door, the film. He moved through his life, in throughout his life while you were filming, as though as exactly as you said, is you did not exist. There's just
Hmm.
something about the way he interprets information. He knows where to be
Mm.
within himself. He knows
Mm.
when he needs to step out and be aware, be peripheral, to
Mm.
be 360, 180. Overall in all, when watching the film, it did not feel as though someone was filming it.
You're the second person. It's funny. I was on another podcast, and the woman said the same thing. Why is it that I felt like a camera wasn't there? I mean, uh, I'm wondering if it's so having been worked on so many different shows and being a director and an editor and kind of knowing all the different angles that you need to sort of tell the fullness of this scene. What is your beginning? What is your middle? What is your end? And moving around, with the camera. I mean, I'm mostly a handheld camera person. I mean, obviously I put it on a tripod for the long shots for time lapses. Had a long lens on there at times, had a drone shot even so that, I could establish the isolation, the grandness of this mesa. Um, and so maybe in the way that I shot it and thought about all how is this going to look in an edit? Do I have I captured everything I need to tell the fullness of this scene? And so I would just be moving around this way and that, and John would just be doing his
Mm-hmm.
life. And when he first asked me, so how are you going to approach this, Carrie? And as a lot of filmmakers say, as a fly on the wall, and that's kind of what I was. Uh, and and I think the because I was living out there and we became good friends, that he emoted as though I was just a friend of his, and yet it came through my lens in that way. So perhaps
Yeah.
that's why you felt that. And I wanted to create this immersive experience. It was intentional, as a director to create that. One of my early influencers was Frederick Wiseman. I don't know if you are familiar with the documentary filmmaker, but he documented a lot of American institutions. Welfare, a high school, and the camera would just roll. It was just raw, and he would shoot for 6 weeks. He often did the sound and had a couple cinematographers, and then he would go back and edit for 8 months, and that's exactly what I did.
And
So
it
that
worked.
was intentional.
You
Yeah.
you happen to be another wild horse at the door that
Yeah.
that that moved perfectly with everything and everyone else that
Mm,
was there.
mm. Yeah. Well, and the music helped too, I think.
Mm.
A lot of people comment on the music, and some of that music John played on his guitar. There's a couple popular musicians, which is kind of a lesson for me for music licensing, because I can't I have to keep chasing the funds in order to pay for the rights to this music. But it was just such a wonderful lyrical underlay, the music. So one is Tony Joe White. It's a swamp blues artist. And the other one is Guy Davis, which is the one that plays in the end, which is Sometimes I Wish That I Could Fly Away. And
Mm.
so John played those, and I thought, wow, I love those tunes. I wonder if I can get the rights to those. And yes, I did, but it'll be, this much for them. But they've worked with me, so that's great. And then I sourced music, royalty free and otherwise, but and I use it sparingly. I wanted the audience to, again, hear the bird sounds, hear John's echoing voice when he calls for the horses. And
Hi, this is Dan Aykroyd. He's progressive. He's beautiful. He's thoughtful. He's intelligent. He's powerful. He's positive. He is Stephen Cuoco on Power 98.5 Satellite Radio.
We don't play the social game. We are social. Power 98.5.
Empowering listeners from the US to the UK. Live on air with Stephen Cuoco.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you are in the world. You are listening to Power 98.5 Satellite Radio. I'm Stephen Cuoco. I'm live on air with Stephen Cuoco. It's been a morning, afternoon. I'm not with it, Carrie. You already got the accidental voice message that was meant for someone else, and I accidentally sent it to you. Please tell me you did listen to it.
I did,
Did you?
and you were firm, but articulate about what it was you needed done with the lawn. And
I feel so close to you. Like when I saw that, I'm like, wait a minute. That went to Carrie. So then I clicked on it to copy the audio, and then I sent it to my landlord.
oh gosh, I think you can delete text messages. So
Yeah.
next time, no, There was nothing too personal in there. Now I know you even better.
You know me even better and even closer of what's happening in my
And even
personal life. Oh my God. This
exactly.
should be on TV. He goes, my landlord responds, not listening to your rants, Stephen. He says
Oh,
I ranted because I'm setting boundaries. Everyone's a victim when you set boundaries. We're ranting. I rant. I'm thorough. I'm a publicist. I'm a journalist. I'm supposed to be thorough. I'm not a one sentence person.
something I need to learn, boundaries for sure. Other than, my garden, even my garden sort of goes off into other boundaries. Like, well, it's thriving.
Oh my God. But are you getting the chaos of the weeds complaining and trying to take over and acting and running amok?
Yeah.
Thank you to once again. We've got Carrie Lederer. She is a producer, director. Wild Horses at the Door is the latest and greatest. I'm going to say deserves an award. It's picked for this year's Brave Maker Film Festival. So I hope Tony and the team over there saw my recommendation, my award recommendation, because it has a trophy on there, and
Oh,
I clicked on that
wow.
trophy.
So why do I even need to screen? I got the reward.
Exactly. So I gave you the award. I just hope it becomes official. And when you're at Brave Maker Film Festival this year, they hand you that gold.
I'm super, super excited about Brave Maker. It came to me from the Chimera Project, which is an organization that supports women in film, non-binary, you name it, women in film. And I got some finishing funds from them, and they sent me an email and said, "Hey, Carrie, submit to the Brave Maker, Brave Maker, Brave Maker." Okay. And I was thrilled to be accepted for screening, and then to learn that Wild Horses at the Door is actually going to be in Cinemark Theater. I mean, that's golden for a filmmaker, especially when you've raised funds to put into sweetening the sound and working with the colorist. And it's a very cinematic journey, Wild Horses at the Door. So I can't wait to hear the horses rap around the room with the audience.
Visually, it's stunning.
Thank you.
The trailer is perfect, extremely well done. That it's not cheap looking. It's has a story that most people, if not a lot of people, may, it's about homelessness. It's about self-infliction. It's about this man who he purchased a farm in Colorado, right? His sister helped him purchase a farm in Colorado.
So yeah, it's about a guy whose name is John Wayne Smith. And John lived unhoused for 8 years. He struggled with alcoholism and went into recovery. When I say homeless, he lived in a bus just outside of Vail, Colorado, in a small town called Minturn. And after 8 years, he thought, I really need to change my situation. And he came across an ad for 40 acres and a steel building on a remote mesa in southern Colorado. And his estranged family came to his rescue and said, "Okay, we'll help you purchase this steel building." And within a week, he moved out there. And he knew that there were wild horses out there. John had grown up around horses his entire life. In fact, his last full-time job, well, a job that he loved, was working on a ranch in Minturn, and the woman who owned the ranch passed. And it really devastated him. And that's kind of when things started to spiral. So anyway, he moves out to this mesa and he's living there. And at first he sees these wild horses from a distance. One evening, a pregnant, injured mare shows up at his door and he helps deliver the foal. And he names the foal Blizzard. From that day forth, all these horses started to come in. And he found healing and he found purpose caring for these wild horses. So that's essentially, the story, the log line story. But it's a story about resilience. It's a story about love. It's about this profound, transformative power of the healing of horses. It's about sustainability, both for John and for the horses.
If I may ask, did you have a trailer there? Because I saw how he had to take a bath and he had to buy water to bring water back up. So it's not, there's no plumbing.
Nope.
There's
He lives off grid.
really
He's
off grid.
He's got solar panels. He has to haul all the water up, about 350 gallons of water daily. But that's not just for him,
Yeah.
because now that he's committed himself to caring for the horses, he provisions the horses with water. And so John gets some help from his family, but he's on disability, so he gets money from that. And oftentimes he's constantly putting this money into both caring for the horses and caring for himself. So yes, I when I went out there, I camped out initially in the summertime, or I stayed in his bus, and then when I went in the wintertime, it was pretty cold out there, so I stayed on his couch and we'd share meals together, and otherwise, I was a fly on the wall documenting the rhythm of John Wayne Smith's life on this mesa through these seasons.
It is a selfless dedication to your craft and
Mm.
artistry to do that. Because to hear, oh, you stayed on the couch, you shared meals. When you watch this movie, you're going to really understand not only off grid, but this is how humans lived before all of this modernization.
Mhm.
And just for you to be so accustomed to how we live now, you went back to the way, way, way beginning before all of this. I'm going to tell you, there's no amount of money or anything that could get me to do what you did.
Oh, really? You're not a camper.
No, I hate it. My version of camping is
Glamping.
staying maybe at the Hilton.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow. Wow. We're
I
really far removed from. Wait a minute. You described your place out there in the
country,
countryside.
yes, but I have a running toilet. I can
Yeah, that's
take
true.
if
Yeah.
if I'm not able to take a shower, flush
Yeah.
the toilet.
Yeah. So you never water the bushes.
I have a great green thumb because I am from New Jersey, but no, I mean what John does. No, I mean
Yeah.
I give him credit. I mean it's because that when you really look at it, and if you can expand on this, Carrie, and once again we've got Carrie Lederer here. She's a film director, producer of Wild Horses at the Door. It's going to premiere this summer at Bravemaker Film Festival. And also to share, you were in the Peace Corps for 3.5 years. And you've been directing, shooting, and editing, even hosting in nonfiction for over 2 decades. For you to have done that, I have a lot of respect for you because you put all of your desires and your goals and your pleasures aside selflessly to tell the story of someone else. You stepped into his world. How many people can do that? I wouldn't say that I can't do it, but I don't know if I would at the level of dedication that you brought to this film, and not just the film, to tell someone else's story. Not everyone can do that. Not what you did. This is something completely different.
Well, it's been, like I said, many decades immersing myself in cultures throughout the world, both in the US and abroad. I started my career at CNN in the news, and then left and joined the Peace Corps. Talk about immersion. I started in the Comoros Islands, which are a group of islands off the east coast of East Africa. After a year, I then transferred to Senegal and did 2 years there. And I was an environmental educator and media specialist. And you're living in villages, you're living with people who subsist off the land. And as an environmental educator, well, gee, they had a whole heck of a lot more to teach me about their environment than I felt I had to teach them. And I sort of became like a human resource. Profound experience in my life. After Peace Corps, the just digital revolution hit, and so then you could afford to buy a camera, and Final Cut Pro came out, so you can edit. So I worked still on a lot of nonprofit social impact films. I did a lot of independent documentaries, and then the reality trend hit. Well, gee, now I can get a paycheck, and so for 2 decades almost, I worked on everything from weight loss to Bridezilla to ice road truckers navigating through the Himalayas to Alaskan bush people, say yes to the prom, say yes to the dress, streetwear, gangs, true crime, of gosh, you name it. I feel like I've delved into all these worlds and I absolutely thrive on that. It's an exploration through humanity and the world. And so I've done it on teams, as part of teams. But from the very get-go, I established myself as kind of this jack of all, this one-woman band. I can produce, I can shoot, I can edit. I was an editor at CNN, and you can drop me anywhere off in the world,
Yes, you
and I'll
can.
bring home the compelling story. So, fast forward many, many years, decades later, and I thought, gee, I really, people would ask me, well, what are you proud of? Tell me about some of your work. And certainly there's a lot of work that I'm proud of. But I thought, can I call myself a filmmaker? I mean, how crazy is that I didn't feel that I could even call myself a filmmaker? So I thought, let me get back to my documentary roots. And this story of John Wayne came to me in a Facebook post. He has a Facebook page with 5,000 followers, and he journals every day about these horses that he lives with and all their names and their personalities and life ups and downs on the mesa. And someone said, John, you should have your story documented. And someone put my name in the comments. And so John and I exchanged info and we bonded over the fact that we were both ski bums, skiing the same slopes out in various areas of Colorado, Snowmass and Aspen. John is this multi-dimensional character, homeless, recovering alcoholic, but he's an amazing artist. He's a musician. He's a father. He's a grandfather. He's and this incredibly poetic guy. So, here I have this great character, and he was really game to having his story told. And of course, it's just a fraction of his story, but a beautiful story that I think will give those who may struggle with homelessness or addiction or PTSD hope that they can find healing in unexpected ways. So that's a long-winded response to how did you do it? I think I've been doing it for a good 30 years, and I'm attracted to sustainable living, and I love horses. I'm amazed by horses and their healing power, and equine therapy has become so popular, and the reason being is because, well, they echo our emotions. Research has shown that horses can synchronize their heartbeat, not only to each other, but to humans. And so someone who may be anxious or have certain issues, the horses can well, they can sort of regulate that and bring you to this place of calm. And that's very much what John discovered, in being around them.
I didn't know that. Really? So
Yeah.
like if someone's having a panic attack or tachycardia or something, does that a horse can help with
Well,
that?
yeah, yeah, very much so. So horses in a band, if they're sleeping, they do synchronize their heartbeat. And if one happens to notice some sort of threat or danger, then once that heartbeat changes, it kind of alerts the others in the band that something's up. Uh, how they do it with humans, they're just incredibly intuitive and intelligent animals.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that if someone is anxious and they mirror the emotions, then how do they not know that? How do they not mirror that? Why would they not get anxious if the person gets spooked? I Good question. I don't know. I just know that they can synchronize their heartbeats.
It's
But they have this calming effect
yeah.
on many people and are used, for therapeutic reasons. Probably the most therapeutic animal other than, than dogs,
Mhm.
cats and dogs and birds and
Well, because of watching the film, now the images of John with the horses, the way he imbued and enveloped himself in a way they did within each other's chemistry and
Mhm.
energy and their bodies, that makes sense now. It makes sense of why he said what he had said at times in the films. He even referenced, memory serves me correctly, that they are therapy or therapeutic for him, right? Yes, I believe he said, very much he
Absolutely,
said that in the film.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, what's amazing, when people see the film that have been around horses, are the fact that these are wild horses. They're not domesticated. No one's put a saddle on them. No one's put a harness on them of any sort. And John, you can call him a whisperer. He doesn't like to think he's a whisperer. He thinks he's a listener. Although he's constantly chatting them up, and they all have their personalities, and he calls them by the names and the bands and what have you. But John can talk, can get a foal to lay down in his lap and take a nap with the foal while the mares settle in, their heads next to his, and they go into this dream state together. That's how he describes it. And it's just phenomenal to observe this, to witness this. He has an amazing connection with these horses, and thus, for him, this therapy of just staying in the present moment. He uses his art in the same way. He does these Escher-like drawings that are just very intricate, and they may take an entire day, but again, it brings him back to the present. And just as the horses bring him back to the present, when he plays his guitar, he's, in the moment. And so that's his therapy, and that's what has provided him this healing and given him purpose.
I think he's fascinating and fascinating in a way that you can watch him longer than how the film was. The film is at its perfect sweet spot in length. Is there a part two? Will there be a part two or some sort of follow up this year, next year with John?
I don't have it in my books to follow up. I would imagine that there could be a sequel. Yeah, not sure. That was a tricky thing. When I decided, I'm going to get back to my documentary roots, and I'm going to make a short. I kind of confine myself to that amount of time, which is 40 minutes and under. At least that's what the category is, and which has made it a little challenging to be accepted into festivals, because as I've learned, they prefer to program a 20-minute or less. And but here mine's right at the very edge of it. And when I was out there documenting, yeah, could I have continued to document? Probably, but where would the story have gone? I feel that unless I had gone deeper into his background, if you asked how's John today, very much the same as what, happened in the film. Winters are very punishing. The spring arrives and the mesa is just all in bloom and the foals are born and it's this new life and he gets this new lease on life, as we all do when the spring arrives. And but so as far as other dramas happening, well, yeah, always. Does it warrant continuing to document beyond? Perhaps, but I think for the sake of this film, I felt that, I captured enough of this story to where you walk out and there's conversations that come up about all different topics. I think I mentioned to you when we spoke on the phone that I'd shown it to a friend of mine who's in her 50s, and her mom who's in her 80s, and her son who's 13. And they all had different takeaways from the film. The son was really interested in the practicals. Well, how's he charging his phone, and how's he feeding himself, and where's he getting the money? Does he have a job out there? And mom was very much about just the fact that it is such uh, a conversation piece, and that it touches on all these different themes. And my friend was really kind of honed in on the homeless issue, when John describes being homeless and how people turn away, because why do people turn away from the homeless? Because you empathize with them, or because you just can't take, maybe you feel guilty in some way because you're not, giving or helping, or whatever it is that they're struggling through. So she said, gosh, that's me. I
Mm.
really, I realize I do that. And so that to me as a filmmaker is extraordinary, to create a film that people will continue to talk about long after the last frame flashes by. And it brings up something different for everyone.
It will, and it does. And that's a good thing because everyone's
Yeah,
different. How there's no way from seeing this film every person's going to take away the same exact message or receive
yeah,
the same exact message. It's what's going to make it a great topic point of discussion, not just here, but even at when people come up to you, because you're attending Brave Maker this year, right? You'll be
yeah,
there.
very much. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you got to let me know, like what were the conversations like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's also the best is screening your film
Mhm.
and having a conversation immediately with the audience after, who are full of thoughts and questions. And yeah, that's the best.
Your nickname Carrier Pigeon suggests a commitment to on the ground storytelling. What's a moment where being present in a place completely changed the way you saw a story?
Hmm. Wow, that's a tough one. Changed the way I saw the story, being present. Um, You know, okay, I don't know, for some reason this one came to mind, but Alaskan bush people. Okay, another off the grid, family who goes and moves up to Alaska and lives off grid. And and the series is really just kind of mundane tasks that this family does to survive out in the middle of Alaska. And so as producers, with these reality shows, sometimes you sort of anticipate, well, what's going to be the conflict today, or what's going to happen that is going to make this an interesting episode. But with the Brown family, it seemed like no matter what, we didn't have to plan anything, that something crazy was going to happen. Like they're in the middle of the open water, off fishing to bring fish back to the homestead, and the boat breaks down. Or Uh, you name it, something would happen in this series, and I think that, and sometimes that's the difference between the reality when you have sort of a contrived, or a confined amount of time to be able to tell your story. You got a big crew out there. You got to make something happen. You might throw something in. Whereas with documentary, you can kind of let it breathe. But yet, even within the reality, even when you're in the present and you might have planned for something to happen, something else will arise. But I don't know. That's just what came up with being in the present with the Brown family and Alaskan Bush people, and that's why the series continued because oftentimes these incidences were rather comedic and they were just great characters all around. Um, but you ask about presence. I mean, the Peace Corps was very much had me immersed in local culture and speaking another language. And at the time that I joined the Peace Corps, this was before internet hit. Actually, internet was starting to come into mainstream when I was in the Peace Corps, but I didn't know much about it because I kind of, I wanted to be present and I wanted to be immersed in this world that, where the biorhythms were a lot slower than they are in the US. And after 2 years in the Peace Corps, they actually make you return home to touch ground with your own culture. And I'll never forget returning to the US and going to a movie with my brother and sister-in-law, and it came up www dot. I went, what the hell is www? I mean, I just, I'll never forget that. And then the whole world changed. And,
And here you
but
are.
yeah, and voila, here I am. And now we got AI coming out and we'll just roll with it. Yeah.
You blend the technical precision of
Mm.
cinematography with the instincts of a journalist. Do you
Mhm.
ever feel tension between the two, and how do you resolve it in the edit?
Hmm. Gosh, in the edit. Well, so a lot of the reality shows that I worked on, the reality documentary shows that I worked on, I wasn't in the edit. I was mostly a field producer, drawing out the story. So I'll address the edit in a second, but there were times that I would conduct an interview and the people that I was interviewing would get so comfortable that they would start to reveal a lot of very personal situations in their lives, so much so that I was concerned that if this aired, that it could come back to haunt them. And there were times where I'd write notes for posts saying, look, I know I have their release, but do this person justice and not include this. Um, that was the best I could do, when it came to impacting what would show up on TV the next month. As far as editing, even with this documentary, I conducted interviews with John, even though I didn't necessarily show the talking head in the film, but he narrates his story, and sort of parsing through it and making sure that I mean it's his voice. It's not as though I was writing the script, but I just wanted to make sure that I was, it's a tough one, that I was telling his story in full, that making sure that his dignity was remained intact. I mean, it's not that he said anything that he should have been embarrassed about in any way. Um, but sometimes I wondered if I needed to lean in more to explain some of what came out. Um, yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm drawing kind of a blank on how to explain that. I
You did.
think I
I
yeah.
believe you
I
did.
mean, was there something that came up for you that you wondered about?
Mm. It's just seeing where the
Yeah.
question would take you. Yeah, just
Yeah. I mean,
formulating.
I think as a journalist, you go in and you have a set of questions. Sound, the soundscape was just as important as the visuals of this magnificent mesa, and it's surrounded by these cirque of mountains, and the clouds coming in, the weather changing, and the smell of the sage on the mesa, and the horses running in, and yeah, it's just gorgeous.
How do you balance being both an observer and a participant in the stories you document, ensuring
Mm.
authenticity while still shaping a compelling narrative?
Mm. Well, I don't know. Participant means to me, you kind of turn the camera around on yourself, which I have done. With a travel series that I so in my career I was a producer, shooter, editor, and Travel Channel approached me and said, "Hey, send us a reel." I said, "Okay, here's my reel." They said, "No, no, no, we want to see you in front of the camera. We'd like you to host a show and juggle all these other roles." And this was a series called Not Your Average Travel Guide, and it was awesome. I mean, what a dream job to get assigned to travel somewhere and in your own voice and personality take someone on a tour of Vegas or Sedona or Panama or Mexico City for Dia de los Muertos. And so, here in this case, I very much had to be a participant, but I approached all those shows as documentaries as well. Vancouver, Canada was the most livable city in the world. Okay, well, let's prove or disprove that. And so off I would go, and lots of interviews on the street. So that's participatory documentary. How do you not become a participant? And I think you are a participant just through the way that you craft the film. I mean,
Mhm.
yes, it's John Wayne Smith's story, but it came through my lens and my vision, both as I captured it and as I molded it in an edit. So that's where I participated and birthed this documentary, or other projects in my life. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Mhm. Yes, it
Sort of.
did. Yes, it did. You're doing great. Don't doubt yourself.
These are
Thank
good questions.
you.
I'm gonna have to write them down and really delve in deeper and post post call.
You want me to email them to you?
I'll remember
Oh, you
them
remember?
because
Okay.
I'll think back afterwards and
Okay.
go, now I
Yeah,
know what
that's
I
right.
should
Yeah.
have
Well, we'll have
said.
this interview. That's right. You'll hear it. I'm trying. I'm looking for.
By the way, am I bouncing around a lot because
You're good.
I'm sitting on a big old mall here, so I have a tendency to.
You're good. All right. I'm looking for. I have 15 questions, but I'm not asking all. I'm looking
Oh,
for
wow.
ones that you have already answered or ones that
Okay.
have already correlated. Uh, I like this one. After decades in the field, is there a moment where you had to completely unlearn something you once believed about filmmaking?
Learn something.
You don't have to have an answer. If it doesn't resonate, we
Yeah,
can go on to something
no,
else.
I think I would just say that I remember when I had an opportunity to document for Smithsonian Institute, and they run this course called Monitoring and Assessment of Biodiversity. And I pitched to them, hey, how about we create a promotional video and I'll document this course over 6 weeks. I don't know what I was thinking, but, and they were scientists, park people from all over the world who wanted to learn how to come up with management plans for biodiversity in their respective areas in the world. And so I would be out in the field and filming. And there were times I just wanted to throw the camera to the side and get my hands dirty and get down with the scientists looking at what it was. That is something that I still struggle with is when you constantly have a lens in front of your face, you're a few degrees removed from the reality that you are capturing, and I'm constantly telling other people's stories. And so am I missing out in some in experiencing life because I'm always viewing it through a lens and and presenting it through a lens or through someone else's voice, although it is also my voice. But I think that's been the hardest thing for me is when do I just put the camera aside and be present in this moment without a camera, whether it's whether it's moving or it's a still camera, because I also love to shoot stills. But I guess it's just an extension of me
It
now.
is. It always will
So
be. Yeah.
yeah. But I don't think there's been a moment where I kind of went, I mean, I just think, well, now with with so much competition for people's attention spans, trying to get the message or the truth out has become that much harder. Uh, and so how do you draw people into what it is that you've created and you're putting out when attention spans are this short? I think that's a real challenge, mm,
Okay.
for filmmakers. And
What's a cinematographic? If I'm even saying, I can't. I have this cinematographic,
cinematographic.
cinematographic. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's break it down. No.
We do. We need to break it down. Cinematographic
Cinematographic.
trick or
Uh-huh.
technique you always come back to because of its emotional power, no matter how much technology evolves.
Something that I come back to. Hmm. I, I think that's why I like handheld. I think that's why I like handheld shooting, is because I'm moving with the person. And when it's on a tripod and they're sitting there and they have to stare into the lens, it can be intimidating. I mean, even in a Zoom. So I love the handheld, cinematography. And in films, it can be a little bit dizzying. I mean, that's why they have uh, Ronins, to stabilize. And that was something I thought, gosh, I should really have a Ronin out here. But trying to calibrate that, and the horses are running this way, and like, I don't have it calibrated. You just have to, put it on the tripod, get the long lens on, grab that shot, take it off, change the lens, run out, get another angle. Uh, yeah, I think and the ability um, to go in for a close up when maybe the emotions are heightened. Yeah, I would just say handheld
Okay.
cinematography.
When documenting real lives, there's an ethical tightrope between truth and cinematic interpretation. How do
Mhm.
you know when you found the right balance.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll bring that back even to Wild Horses at the Door. John's John, when I met him, had been living on the Mesa for 3 years. The homelessness and the struggles had happened, as a backstory. So how do I capture that backstory and keep it real and authentic as I can? Uh, because it very much needed to figure in, but there was no footage of him necessarily living unhoused at the time. And so when you bring somebody back to where they experience trauma, I said to John, would you be willing to go back to Minturn and show me where you would spend time? What did you do during the day? How did you pass the hours? He started to relay these stories of what had happened when he was homeless, that he did try to take his life at one point. And do you feel comfortable going and sitting where that occurred? And I think what happens is that it just brings up the emotion again, revisiting these places. And so did I recreate some of that? Yes, but it was still, I think it still had a lot of integrity, and I still think it was authentic to his story. Or it was real in the sense that it happened exactly like that. And so I was somebody peering in, uh, and revisiting that time in his life.
Yeah, I was
That's
surprised
one.
when he said that he was trafficked. Didn't he reference that he was at some building or some place with several people? It was like a little meeting, or he was outside. I believe he referenced that he was trafficked.
Trafficked as a
Trafficked?
child.
Yeah.
He suffered, yeah, he suffered a lot of trauma growing up. And that was something that I didn't expand upon. I thought that just that statement alone lent itself to realizing that it's something that he'll constantly have to struggle with his entire life. Do we need to go into that, further? Some people thought maybe I should, but I felt that just making the statement that what he had suffered through the abuse and sexual abuse was enough.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
I'm even feeling surprised to even say that to you, because often we hear alcoholism, sexual abuse,
Mm.
but someone acknowledging they were trafficked. I
Yeah.
mean, that's powerful,
Yeah.
because you don't hear that in conversation.
No, no.
You did very well. I'm not saying that you needed to expand on it. It was just a scene to acknowledge John and his healing and his
Mm.
perseverance. That is something you hear in the film. And so this isn't why I'm saying this isn't about here's a guy who was homeless and had is recovering from certain addictions. Like, this is deep seriousness. Things that you hear that happen more often than not to women. And that's what surprised me, is like he was explaining and sharing his story that you don't hear often that happen to men.
Mhm. Mm.
That's what I sat with.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked on the A&E series Intervention. Are you familiar with
Hmm.
Intervention?
I am. I
Yeah.
used to watch it.
Yeah. And often in those episodes, the addicts would talk about trauma from their past, and it's thought that a lot of addicts have untreated trauma, thus the reason they medicate themselves. um, and again, another reason why I was interested in this story is because at the end of Intervention, it ends with the intervention. The
It
family
does.
doesn't want to love their loved ones to death, by enabling them. And so we're going to have an intervention and really say, okay, you've hit rock bottom. It's time for you to figure out, go through detox, go through rehab, and recovery. And then the episode ends after that intervention. And I was always interested in the recovery process. And so here was an opportunity with John to actually document, I'll call it recovery, in real time, because once an addict or an alcoholic, every day is a new day, and every day you're practicing the AA steps, or, whatever you've figured out to help you guide yourself through that day without, falling off the wagon, so to speak. And so, yeah, John really presented, a way in which that I could document that recovery, because every day is a new day for John, and he has his ups and his downs, and within an hour he could shift his personality, and something would come and trigger him, and then and then the horses would show up, like in that one scene where he calls the reporters. That happened real time. I mean, literally, he hung up the phone and the horses showed up, and their timing could not have been better. And so I just love that juxtaposition of these lingering demons, and the love of these horses. um yeah, it's a tough subject.
Very.
Yeah. I mean, you said you've worked with mental health patients in
Grief
what
counseling.
capacity? Oh, counseling, grief
Grief.
counseling.
And I counsel those who had substance abuse, certain addictions. Had a couple that had suicidal tendencies. Asperger's as well. I had one. I learned a lot about that. What a person with Asperger's, it's something about how many people who are so mixed diagnosed, thinking, oh, someone's got ADD or ADHD, but there's such a correlation of like Asperger's and different levels or areas of Asperger's and autism. It's quickly, like with Asperger's or even autism, it's easier to say, oh, you've got ADD or ADHD or other remarks that have been made. But I can tell a difference when someone has that, or when someone has a mild form of Asperger's, or if they have a certain form of autism. It's really incredible, because people who are definitely have certain aspects of autism can be extremely high functioning.
Yeah.
Yet there's a misunderstanding to their intentions, to where someone with Asperger's or even with autism can come across narcissistic, self-absorbed, misunderstood, as though they seem to not care about others. But I can't speak too much on it, to say, like, because everyone is different. Because really you have to get to know the person, because there are people out there that are just absolutely clever and deviant, that have no problem playing a victim. They have no problem acting like there are people that are so intellectually imbalanced that they will fake a mental illness. And I've seen this.
Yeah.
I've witnessed this.
Wow. Any that have turned on you?
Oh, of course. Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
Of
yeah, yeah.
course. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Challenging. Yeah.
If you could revisit one past project with the wisdom you have today, what would you change?
I don't know if there's a project in particular because I always feel like every project I'm learning something that I apply to the next. Going back, yeah, I mean you could pick apart many projects. I wish that I had assigned myself the task of realizing my own documentaries earlier. I mean, it's not to say that I haven't, I mean, Travel Channel. Yes, I created all these shows. I've done work for all different nonprofits where, they send me off to Uganda, where they're trying to prevent retinopathy, prematurity of retinopathy, and I would document the doctors there, and I mean I've done all different kinds of projects, but I just so early in my career I was attracted to documentary filmmaking, and so why didn't I work on my own vision for so long? I think that, if I look back, I wished that I had given myself, I don't know, the license to just focus in on something, complete the project, which again is why this one was so important to me. Because it's like, gosh, Carrie, are you ever going to are you going to do your own someday? So that was a huge task. Like, good job. You finished it. And, the festivals and everything else, okay. But, you met somebody who entrusted in you, you were aligned in the mission and you completed it. And that in itself is a wonderful accomplishment. I think for all filmmakers, it's such an undertaking. Documentaries are such labors of love, and where they're going to go, we don't always know. But the fact is that we birthed it, and it'll have an impact, and it'll find its audience. So yeah, I try not to regret too much, but I'm sure there's many more regrets I could bring up, but. As far as projects, yeah, I think all of them are just putting another feather in my hat and learn something new, and mistakes, like, ah, dang it, I forgot to press record. That's
We've all done that.
right.
We've
I mean, come
all
on,
done that.
all of you out there. I know some of you have, even after decades of being in the business. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
even when I was out on the Mesa, that one scene where he's sleeping next to the mare in the fall.
Oh, I remember that scene. Okay.
Yeah. And I was recording that for a long time. And I looked down at my camera like, no, you didn't, I had press record. And
Seriously.
so, but yes. And so I'm like, oh God, just keep sleeping. So like, well, that still happens to the best of us.
Thank God the horse didn't catch your heartbeat changed. You
Yeah, I know,
would have woke
exactly.
him up.
Got up. Hmm.
Carrie, thank you so much. Carrie Lederer, film producer, director of Wild Horses at the Door, premiering at Brave Maker Film Festival. And I hope you get an award out of this. You deserve
Thank
it.
you. Hey, just screening it in a theater is, I was told that's very rare. So I'm just,
It has to be. It has to be. It is theater worthy. Any
thank you
closing
so much,
thoughts?
Steve.
You are welcome. Any closing thoughts at all? Anything you want to leave us with?
Come, check out well, let's see. I've got a Facebook page, Wild Horses at the Door. It's on Instagram and on my website, Carrier Pigeon Productions. There's a page for Wild Horses at the Door, and I've got screenings on there as well. So stay tuned, and hopefully we'll come to a theater or
Yes.
community library near you. And eventually, yes, it will be online. So
Good.
thanks so much, Steve, for having me. This was really fun.
I'm excited. Thank you. And thank you for being even closer, even more now with me after today's getting this all put together and everything, and you getting to listen to my personal life accidentally because I accidentally sent you that recording.
See, I have that effect on people.
You do. And I I was at peace about it. I was like, wait a minute.
She's not
It's
gonna care.
Carrie.
Yeah, it's Carrie. Yeah, come on, we're old friends.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who's tuned in to Live on Air with Stephen Cuoco on Power 98.5 Satellite Radio. All the latest and greatest of Power 98.5. Download the app. Tune in on Alexa. We are available on Apple Music. So if you got Apple Music, type in Power 98.5. You can check out all the latest and greatest of Live on Air with Stephen Cuoco on any one of your favorite podcast platforms. However, please remember, this is a radio show. We don't intentionally like to promote it as a podcast, but we are happy to say you can find us on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. What else, Carrie? What other ones? Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. Catch us on Amazon Music. So be there, live, love well, and if all else fails, don't go towards medication. Don't be drinking. Just get yourself a horse. Allow that horse to synchronize with your heartbeat and just relax. Take care, everyone. This is where I got to remember to, like you said, turning things on, I got to make sure I turn everything off.